Yeah, I mean, I learned a long time ago in my first agency, I realized I had to have, and this is what I did in 2003. I created a 330-page website. And I'll tell you why. It sounds ridiculous. I did it because I wanted, if somebody referred me business, because I'm a very much a referral-based broker. I was never a lead. I cold called one client, one prospect once in my life. I got the account. I hated every minute of it, and I never cold called again. Like, that's just the truth. I never, and I kept that client for 15 years. It's kind of sad, but I literally would tell you that I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of like white collar networking, just networking and engaging, and even with my competitors, because there's something a competitor doesn't do that you do, right? Sure. That's how you do it. And so I did it for years. That's also why I was involved in the insurance association. And to me, you spend all of your time doing that, and business is going to come in every direction. So you want when somebody refers something, you want to say, yes, I do. And so if somebody said, hey, can you insure a one-legged man with a cane for auto insurance? I'm like, yes, I can. And I wanted a page that had a one-legged man insurance, on it. And I wanted to be able to send them the link. And that's how I did it. And so to me, it's like you want to, and then I built a team when I became president of our company. I had an aviation partner. So we sent aircraft to them. I had, 2 personal lines department. I had high net worth and then our regular department. And you do it so that you can facilitate anyone, any type of ego, any type of simplicity. And I had $5,150 policies that needed to be serviced. And when you look at those guys, you're like, why do they need to be serviced? You're like, okay, this person's a personal trainer. I started a website called personaltrainerinsurance.com back in the 90s. And so they were paying $150, and people were like, why would you treat them so well? I'm like, well, they're paying $150. They make about 15 to 20 grand a year. That's like, pretty significant of their income. You think about it, right? Relative to the guy that's paying less than 1% for a $10 million company, they're paying $2,500, right? And then there's someone making 20 grand a year paying 150. So we had to put the right people in the right seats to do it. And people are like, you're losing money. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm choosing to do that because I'm going to make it up in volume. And I know that's silly, but we did. That's how you do it.
Yeah,
it was still a niche.
Sure, and that's the thing. I love that you brought that up, because I was just trying to figure out a way to work that in, because that's something I talk about on stages a lot, is building niches. I just, spoke in North Carolina last week about this, and again, a great opportunity for a captive to come in and to be able to do some of those things. And so, again, for you, that niche, so to speak, is we want to say yes to whatever we can, but for other people that might say tow trucking or cannabis or hemp or whatever it might be, I think there's some big opportunity there. And from your perspective there, I know you're at a place now where you're not hunting new niches and new opportunities. They're more coming to you, and you're fielding out where you want to go there. But for a retail broker, or for even a carrier, or for someone listening to this podcast that's thinking, niche focused, and where do I start? What do I do? Is there advice there, or is there things you could talk about there from your perspective on, I know from where I come from, but you're thinking way bigger. You're on a whole nother level than I am when I'm thinking about niches. But one of the things I do say to lead into what you've been talking about is, I'll tell people as you're walking through, thinking through, what is your ideal client look like? What do they not look like? Those kind of things at a high level for the more your retail brokers. But then I do get into an example that I had when I was an agent of, when I owned an agency. It was like, I wanted to find those accounts with hair on them, or I wanted those accounts that had audit issues. I wanted some of those that people look at me, even from stage, and they're looking at me like, why would you want an account like that? Kind of go back to what we talked about. But again, I go back to, because that means that they've got a pain point. They've got an issue. They've got something you've got to solve for them. But again, I say all that to say, is there some things that you could add to that conversation of, like, if someone is thinking about a niche or thinking about that and setting up a captive, what's some advice you would give? What are some things you could say to those agents right now, or those carriers, or those tech companies?
So here's what I would say. So first of all, I wouldn't even start a conversation about a captive yet. I would let's address your first part. I think retail agents. I think I love the passion that's coming out of young